Hey guys, Luke Wilson here with a fresh off-season outlook for you. This time it's Jonnu Smith. Smith, aka Arthur Smith's favorite son, 2023 looked like it was going to be another year toiling in Patriots purgatory. He was going into the season halfway through a 4-year contract with the Patriots, but he'd fallen well behind Hunter Smith in the target pecking order, was being used primarily as a blocker, and it certainly looked like that was going to continue until Arthur Smith came a-callin'. But honestly, at the time, certainly nobody really thought much of it. We all just kind of assumed, well, Kyle Pitts doesn't really block. This is a team that certainly wants to run the ball a lot with Desmond Ridder. Ergo, Jonnu Smith is in town to block. And yes, while Smith did definitely do his fair share of blocking, what we lost sight of was the fact that the Falcons really had no number 2 wide receiver to speak of. So what wound up happening was Kyle Pitts became the de facto wide receiver 2, allowing Jonnu Smith to play a complement of snaps more in line with like being the starting tight end for the Falcons in 2023, which allows him to compile career highs almost across the board. Career high 50 receptions and career high 70 targets allows him to get to a career high 582 yards receiving and a tight end 17 finish, his best since his 8 touchdown 2020, which got him the New England Patriots contract in the first place. But with the entire Falcons coaching staff shown the door at the end of another dismal 2023, Jonnu Smith was soon to follow, but that would prove to be a blessing in disguise as Smith resurfaces a little over a week later with the Miami Dolphins on a 2-year, $10 million contract, and now we're talking. Now, if you're having a hard time getting excited about Jonnu Smith, I can't say that I blame you, even with him landing in Miami. When you look at his career stats, they're just not that exciting. Like I said, his best ever finish in fantasy was as the tight end 16 back in 2020. But if we rewind, if we go back in time to that point in time a little bit, Jonnu Smith, yes, with Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator there in Tennessee in 2019, in 2020, was really kind of ascendant in the dynasty community at the tight end position. In 2019, yes, on a very small number of targets, he was producing a lot of big plays per capita, relative to the number of targets he was seeing. In 2019, only needs 44 targets to produce 35 receptions and 439 yards receiving, which is good for like 12.5 yards a catch because 40% of his receptions that year went for gains of 20 plus. And then in 2020, Smith's last year as the offensive coordinator in Tennessee, him and A.J. Brown are just touchdown machines. They are poster children for guys that were scoring touchdowns on every 4th or 5th reception. So yeah, if we rewind back to October 2020, Jonnu Smith was one of the 6 or 7 most valuable tight ends in Dynasty at that time. But Smith was not able to keep up the blistering touchdown pace that he started 2020 with. And then at the end of that season, obviously he's rewarded with a 4-year stint in Foxborough offensive purgatory. Which brings us to now. So right now, Jonnu Smith is a receiver who, again, is coming off a season where he proved that he can hit a lot of splash plays for a tight end. And Jonnu's long-awaited reward after toiling for 7 years in crummy offenses is that he gets to go to the Miami Dolphins, the big play factory in fantasy football the last 2 years since Mike McDaniel took over there. And yes, of course, the counter-argument to that is obvious, but the Dolphins don't throw the ball to their tight end. They only throw it to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And yes, for sure, McDaniel's first 2 seasons in Miami, 100% true. The Dolphins had absolutely no interest in throwing it to any of their tight ends. They had absolutely no interest in throwing the ball to anybody but Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Absolutely true. The Dolphins are smart. Mike McDaniel is one of the smartest head coaches in the league. Certainly offensively, he's one of the sharpest minds in the league. And in my opinion, I believe that the Dolphins have looked around at the other offenses in the league in 2023 that suddenly much more successfully featured their tight ends in the offense. Evan Ingram in Jacksonville, David Njoku in Cleveland, TJ Hawkinson in Minnesota, and realized, hey, we can do that. And if that is the case, Jonnu Smith, for the obviously badly salary cap strapped Miami Dolphins, is as good as it gets in terms of being able to be a big play generator in their big play friendly offense. And yes, while if that is true and the tight end position in general is just getting stronger, that means that there's sort of a rising tide raising all ships element to this theory, and it therefore kind of waters down any potential value over replacement in Jonnu Smith, Worst case scenario is I'm right, but you still have the guy who comfortably is number 3 on the Miami Dolphins in targets for very cheap. Now, yes, while I'm obviously very interested in Jonnu Smith at this moment in time, and certainly rooting for this to succeed and for me to be right, the idea behind him is still very much that he is a bargain buy. And taking a quick look at his market in Dynasty right now, it is on the upswing, okay? The word is out that Jonnu Smith is a Dolphin, and people are adjusting his market up accordingly. He was down around like the tight end 40 a week ago. He's already back up to nearly the tight end 30 in Dynasty rankings a week later. But he's definitely still cheap. He's down around guys like KJ Osborne and Bo Melton in Dynasty. So yeah, you should still definitely be able to prime away most of the time for like a late 3rd round, early 4th round pick if you're able to get him loose at all. But with the buzz around him kind of picking up fast, you may have to kind of pony up with like a middle 3rd round pick. And while this isn't a rookie class where I want to be especially loosey-goosey with even my 3rd round picks, if I was kind of hard up at tight end and wanted a guy with some real upside for cheap, I would not have a problem with going up to like a middle, maybe even early 3rd round pick. And as for redraft, I believe we are entering a late tight end renaissance in 2024. There are a lovely medley of guys out there that should be available in the last round or second to last round. Cade Otton, Tyler Conklin, Noah Fant, those are all guys that I would be perfectly comfortable taking a couple of them at tight end and going into the season that way. But at the moment, Jonnu Smith towers above them all. He is the poster child for late tight end for me right now heading into 2024, assuming that his market doesn't get too hot. Early offseason outlook for Jonnu Smith is that he is a buy.